Well, hello members. This is a continuing report here on the Qs, on that PSQ short, shorting the Qs basically. Today, let's review where we're at real quick, and then let's talk about strategy in terms of where we go. Where we're at is a situation where you've had the big push up, right? Now it's trying to pull back. Question is, how far will it pull back? And as we talked about yesterday, one potential area is there, and another one is deeper, right, way down to here. And then that potentially could set up the ABCD structure to go break out the highs. The MTTFs, suggest that eventually a swing point high is going to be broken, and it's not going to be that much longer from now. So the ideal here is that somewhere we're going to get a retrace and probably a push back up, and we're going to need to take this position out before that happens. So that's the bigger picture. Now it is possible, of course, that this thing could simply just go down and make new lows, but I think that's the low runner case. I think the higher runner case is some sort of a pullback, push up. How it plays out could be a different way, and that is that instead of a pullback, you could simply get some small range here, 3 or 4, 5, 6 bars across, and then take off. Right? So that's another possibility. In other words, you don't get hardly anything on a pullback. Now, we've been watching the DAX as a key input to all of this, and the DAX, yesterday had done the test failure, remember? So the swing point high was here, the DAX got over it, back under it, right? And then today it should get a pullback, and that's in fact what happened. Now, what it hasn't done today is it hasn't closed underneath this low, swing point low's low. And so right now the DAX is still hanging up there, and the retest regen, in other words, the regenerate lower, hasn't kicked in quite yet. And so it's still kind of testing. Now it did test fail up here, which suggests it's going to try to do that, but it hasn't happened yet. So that's the backdrop. So if we move back over here to the Qs, now it's kind of a question of strategy. Now, yesterday here in the trading room, I actually said let's short using the PSQ. Let's short into this pullback that was happening yesterday on the assumption that we might even gap down, right, to open up, which we barely gapped down on the Qs. We did more so on the SPY, and then get a push down. And so the idea was to get an entry in there and see if we can better our position a little bit, which we did yesterday, but today we didn't get much in terms of the actual portfolio because it was overnight. And then the second part of that is if we're coming back to here, we can actually take a partial off at that area or all of it. And if we do take a partial, right, then we're making the assumption it's going to try to come back deeper. And so that's kind of the strategy on the way back. Now, if you're wrong, you got to have a strategy for that as well, right? And the strategy there is now you hit this high, you went over and under it, you had less volume. You should not go back over that area. And so now we can pull the stops in tighter. We don't have to have them up so much. And so what you'll see in the portfolio as of this afternoon, next week, is that stop's going to be tighter. And so we're just not going to take that much more risk on the second entry add plus the first entry as well. So that's the setup. That's what's happening right now. Are we going to get the deeper pullback? I think it really depends on the DAX, and it depends on what the DAX does Monday now. Monday we actually have industrial numbers coming out of Europe. I think that's going to have a large impact on whatever happens with respect to these markets in terms of economic numbers, and we'll just have to see what that comes out and does, right, and does to these markets. As of today, it looks like it's just going to be a range trade. These are going to just range trade in this area. They don't want to give it up. It came to the bottom right where, if you look at what's happening here, there's a little gap right here. It came right to the bottom of that gap, and they're unwilling to press down into that gap so far. It's early. It's only about 2 hours into trading. So by the end of the day, we actually could get that push through here potentially. But so far, they're holding up pretty well. We'll see how they look by the end of the day and certainly by Monday. But that's the strategy. That's what we're doing. And I think that's probably not a bad strategy at this point, because we should get some sort of a retrace off that failed break of the retest regen zone on the DAX, and just a little peek over and back under yesterday. All right, that's it. I'll see you next time.